Hello, everybody. Happy Monday. Anissa Brownwoods here. Hope you're having a wonderful morning. I certainly am. Had a great rest. So today I wanted to do a quick little video for you, and it's going to be about the kinds of data you need in order to sell your scenarios to stakeholders. And the reason this is coming up is because one of my clients said, I've been trying to convince, like I saw Broken Coworker, I saw Haji Kamal years ago. They're years ago. And I've been trying to convince the people at my workplace that scenarios are the way. And I think I just need some new data on that because it hasn't been working. I haven't been able to sell them on it. They're a really tough crowd. And so one of the challenges with that is that when we're coming in and saying, hey, we want to use scenarios. And if you're trying to actually use data, it's very difficult. The only people that really have data on scenarios and interactions and outputs really are like game designers, because they have games that track basically all of their users, and you have that information, right? Now for us, it's harder to gather that data. But here's also the other detail you have to remember. Data don't tell a story. So this is what the premise of this video today is that data tell, stories sell. Now, if you're just trying to find more numbers and more data, people don't respond to that. And that doesn't actually get them excited about something. Because if somebody's not responding to data, sorry, most humans don't, because they're completely out of context for them. You don't actually need more data. So I said, listen, you don't need more data. And regardless of what you find, regardless of how powerful it is, like 99% of people who go through scenarios have behavior change. It doesn't work like that. What you need to do is two things. One, find a story that actually really works. Hi, Elena. Find a story that will resonate with your stakeholders. So if you're ever introducing scenarios to a workplace that already has a lot of great learning, right? Great learning. Legacy learning, then if you say we have been doing things the wrong way, or we need to introduce scenarios, there are several things that are happening there. One, people have no idea what you're talking about, friend. That's not their world, right? You live in this world of scenarios. They have no clue. So you got to show them, you got to demonstrate, you got to show them things that are already working that they can experience so they realize what it's like. Now, two, when you're showing them these amazing examples, one of the things they'll probably see is this finished amazing package, right? You show them Broken Coworker, they're like, wow, we don't have any resources to do this. How can, this is great for other companies. We don't have that kind of capacity. So what you need to do then is tell them how easy it's going to be to actually create something of a smaller scale, right? And so one of the things I suggested was, one, we find one that resonates and might resonate with your stakeholders so they can experience what a real scenario is like and the kind of effect that it can have on a person, because usually that's number one. People only respond to things that they personally have experienced. And number two is that you don't go full on development, because that intimidates people because they don't know what the scope is. What you're going to try to do is create something small that can be tested very quickly, because you never know what will work with your specific audience, and then build on that. So you have to demonstrate. Data only tells one small part of the story. Your data might not even be powerful enough to make any kind of impact. You have to demonstrate, and then you have to create something that's very small that will actually work, that you can launch quickly. Because one of the things that also happens is people who haven't, let's say you're in a company and you haven't designed your own scenarios yet, you might not feel as confident actually selling that to the stakeholders, right? You're like, well, I don't really have a track record of this. I'm not sure. Well, one of the things that'll get you that track record is developing a small scenario that's actually working. And then you can rely on that to say, hey, look, we've built it. It works. It's relevant. Let's launch. Let's go. Let's do number two. Let's do number three. So basically what I want to just leave you with today is that don't think that it's about you getting better numbers or you getting a better way of saying things. You have to start demonstrating to people, because they really don't know what you're talking about. And most people, even when you say to them, oh, we're going to do a scenario, they really can't imagine what that's like. So you have to really be good at not only sharing the story, the potential, because that's one of the things you want to do is share that story of the potential that this scenario could have, the impact, but also show very clearly what it entails to actually have one available to people. So this, super important. Remember this. And it's funny because I talk about, we talk about this as people who design learning. We say, we can't tell our learners that 95% of them will have better outcomes if they complete this training, because they don't care about that. But if we tell them a story about Judy who invested in her skill set, and they go through a scenario where Judy has to do some sort of a challenge and recognizes her own gaps, that story compels them to take action. It's not going to be the data. Well, guess what? The same process has to be used with the people who are buying into your projects. You have to tell them stories so they can paint and imagine that picture for themselves and see the potential, because the data is good as backup after they're already sold, because it confirms, what they already believe. So you have to change their beliefs about scenarios first before you give them a whole bunch of data to support it. Regardless of how awesome that data is, the story is what's going to sell it for you. So I hope you found that helpful. If you have any questions about anything that I talk about, scenario related, of course, please post it in the comments. Also, just so you know, this is the kind of work we're going to be doing in March. In March, I'm launching a 6-week cohort. Basically, week 1, we are going to be solidifying, well, we're talking to stakeholders, right? We want to find out exactly what kind of scenario is going to have the most impact, because you don't want to do projects that don't have any impact, right? Or that aren't also really meaningful to the people you're developing them for. So we do a bit of that research. And as one of the things that I think is going to be really beneficial is that it's not just going to be me providing my examples from the people that I've worked with, like Adidas, Sony, or Michelin. It's going to be also other students who are working through the same concepts and bringing in, their challenges when they talk to their own stakeholders in their own companies and are trying to formulate a story that will resonate with those people. So that'll be week 1. Foundation is really important when you're setting up a scenario. Week 2, we're going to be working on really after you've identified the kind of impact you want to have and how this really, the scenario will fit into like the big picture of this, basically somebody's learning path, right? The people that you're interviewing, how to make sure that they're the right people, how to interview them properly, how to get the info that you need to actually get a great scenario going. Because one of the things that usually people ask a question, they're like, my SME sucks because he can't give me the info I need to create a compelling scenario. He doesn't know anything about storytelling. Well, you don't need to. If you ask the right questions in the right way, then actually what they do is they just give you everything that you need, and then you take that raw material and then massage it into your scenarios. And that's week 3 is basically that massage. So the first 3 weeks, we do that setup, gather all that info and massage it. And then last 3 weeks, we really work on refining that into a story and consequences and language that people actually find interesting and they want to work through. So the last half is really that refinement with the group and introducing other pieces like the kinds of mechanics that add a little bit of depth to a scenario. So if you look at something like Broken Coworker, there's definitely a great story there, and there's definitely scenarios, but there's also little tweaks and mechanics to make that story a little more compelling by either kicking people out really early because they didn't do so well, or giving them feedback all at the end so that they can really enjoy the learning from those consequences. But those are all decisions. Those are all decisions you make based on the kinds of outcomes you want from that scenario. So those are all the things that we'll be working on. So if that's something that's interesting to you, or you want to have a project, basically work through your project with us in March, then I'll put a link to the form to get in touch with me underneath the video. But otherwise, I'm here again tomorrow. So if you have any questions, post them underneath the video, and I will actually hopefully address it. Usually I try and address it within the week because it's fun. All right, so I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day, and I will talk to you next time, friend. Take care. Take care, Elena. Thanks for visiting.